for as little sex and freedom as possible. Behind all the fun and excitement, the courtship phase of a relationship, just like an extended hiring process, is basically two people figuring out what kind of business they can do together and negotiating what they're willing to give up for what they expect to receive in return. People will balk at this, but that's the way it is. It often doesn't seem like it's the way it is because, just like in business, negotiating too explicitly is gauche. Like, if you want a job, you can't tell your potential employer, look, I could care less about your mission and your culture. You're going to use my skills to increase your profit, and I'm going to use your brand to increase my income. And if I'm going to trade my time for money, I want as much money as I can get. And since I have a few other offers, what I want to know is, can you give me a better deal? Because all things being equal, I'm going to go with the organization that pays me the most. You're going to come off as mercenary and sociopathic, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that is not the subtext of hiring negotiations. Also, keep in mind that any company that shamed a potential employee for prioritizing the bottom line would only do so tactically, like because it's in their best interest to do so. As making employees believe that they should work for things other than money allows companies to functionally receive the same amount of labor for a smaller expenditure of money, which increases their profit. But I digress. In any case, once this protracted negotiation is finalized, that is, once you decide how much money you're willing to receive to compensate for the expenditure of your time, you're going to be anchored at that level as long as you remain at that company. This means that it's going to be very, very hard to get a large raise at that company because all raises will be proportional increases from that negotiated price point. You could get 5% here, 10% there, but you won't ever double your money by remaining loyal. That will only occur if you successfully negotiate a different anchor at a new company. Big bumps in comp don't happen internally, they happen laterally. The same is true for relationships. Big bumps in title and lifestyle generally don't happen internally, they happen laterally. And on the occasions they do occur internally, they generally occur in order to retain someone who has received a better offer elsewhere and is willing to leave. Just keeping it real. Now, before I go any further, if you're liking what you're hearing, please consider sending this video to someone who might benefit from its message because it's word-of-mouth referrals like this that really help to make the channel grow. You may also consider hitting the super thanks button. It's those 3 little dots in the lower right-hand corner, and tip me in proportion to the value you feel you've received from this message. Those donations keep this channel going, and I really appreciate your support. Now, all this kind of begs the question. If the first company can buy an employee's labor for X dollars, why would some other company pay 1.5x dollars for the same labor? I will tell you why. The reason why the second company is willing to pay significantly more for a poached employee is that on a longer time frame, this strategy is cheaper for the company than developing its own talent. How does that work? Well, if a company were to hire someone from scratch without any real experience and without any real proof of ability, then that company is running a risk. After investing in their training and development, many of these employees don't pan out in the long run, or they simply lateral to other companies once they have been trained and developed. And unless you run a company that intentionally grinds through unskilled temporary labor, this approach to hiring will likely prove expensive or even unsustainable. On the other hand, an employee that has already been trained, has already been developed, and has already demonstrated proof of ability is much less of a risk. Poaching companies pay more because they have functionally outsourced the due diligence and training processes. This means that not only will there be less time, energy, and money wasted in cultivating employees that don't go the distance, but there will also be a lower likelihood of future lateral movements as they are paying above market value for the labor in question. Consequently, these companies pay more because it saves them time and buys them longer loyalty. But make no mistake, they only seem to pay more If churning through short-term employees weren't more expensive, they would do that instead. The same is true in dating. And this explains why we see monkey branching far more commonly in women than we do in men. Churning through short-term relationships